Good morning, and thank you for joining the Connecticut Alliance to End Sexual Violence to honor and celebrate Sexual Assault Awareness Month. My name is Beth Hamilton, and I am the Executive Director of the Alliance. This year has been unique, but it gave us an opportunity to reflect on our mission and deepen our commitment to survivors. The impacts of COVID-19 and institutionalized racism have greatly impacted survivors across Connecticut, and while social distancing has kept us safe from spreading the virus, it's also increased vulnerability to abuse, mistreatment, and sexual violence and intensified the trauma already felt by survivors. Over the past year, calls to our hotline have increased, requests for services have swelled, and we have received an unprecedented amount of disclosures of child sexual abuse. While there have been great challenges, our relationships with our communities and one another were strengthened and enriched. We got creative. We found new ways to do the work. We laughed and mourned together, but most of all, we adapted to change and centered survivors. We know that we are stronger together, and our intentional adaptation created space to remain impactful and responsive in the face of those challenges. I'm so thankful to be in community with our membership and our Alliance team, and I am so proud of our coalition and the many people around the state who continue to contribute to supporting survivors and preventing sexual violence. I hope that you will join us for one of the many events the Alliance and our member centers are hosting this month. Please visit our website at www.endsexualviolencect.org or follow us on social media to find an event in your community. I'm also delighted to be able to honor 3 champions of Sexual Assault Awareness Month this morning, all of whom made great contributions to the lives of survivors. The Alliance envisions and hopes to create a world in which everyone believes sexual violence is preventable and actively plays a role in ending it. Our 3 awardees exemplify the kinds of people who help to make our mission a reality. It is my distinct honor to be able to extend gratitude to our 2021 NSVRC Visionary Voice Awardee, Marc Pelka, our Community Ally Awardee, Melinda Johnson, and to our Advocacy and Action Awardee, Lindsey Jones. These folks create support and safety for survivors and challenge systems and communities to do better, and I'm so thankful for each of them. While I wish we were all celebrating SAM together, I look forward to seeing you online to learn more about sexual violence and how we can support survivors. And until we're together again, please know that we're here for you. So while I'm sad that we're not able to be in person this morning, I'm delighted to be able to present the Alliance's 2021 NSVRC Visionary Voice Award to my dear colleague, Marc Pelka. Since taking his position as Undersecretary of Criminal Justice Policy and Planning at the Office of Policy Management, Marc has helped to shift conversations and highlight the need for victims and survivors of sexual violence to have meaningful access to and transparent information about the criminal justice process. Marc is a true collaborator who carefully considers all aspects of an issue and reaches out often to be sure that the voices of survivors have a seat at every table. Marc has demonstrated his commitment to uplifting victims and survivors through his careful approach to criminal justice policy reforms in our state and consistently calls stakeholders into the conversation. He builds bridges and finds solutions no matter how complex the issue or system. Marc's dedication to supporting survivors, however, goes beyond his professional role. He recently trained to be a certified sexual assault crisis counselor and began taking shifts on our statewide sexual assault crisis hotline to honor his commitment to survivors and deepen his understanding of the impacts of sexual violence. Since taking on my new role leading the Alliance, some of my favorite phone calls are the ones that I have had with Marc and his team at OPM. Marc brings out the best in everyone around him as he challenges us all to be our most informed, thoughtful, and collaborative selves. As an Alliance team, we could think of no one better than Marc to be this year's Visionary Voice Award winner. Before I turn it over to you, Mr. Undersecretary, I wanted to share another congratulatory message.
During this last year of COVID, it's brought out an awful lot of stress. Extreme stress has resulted occasionally in sexual assault, violence, domestic abuse. And I want to thank you for recognizing the amazing work that Marc Pelka does and standing up for all those who have suffered at the hands of that abuse and doing what he can to help people. Thank you, Marc. We appreciate your efforts.
Wow. Beth, I told myself I wasn't going to cry. I said, Marc, remember to turn off your mute button and look at the camera and speak slow. And I could barely hold it together with your remarks about survivors, Beth, and the need to meet them where they are, believe them, listen to them, and support them. But thank you so much for that. I'm both thrilled to hear the governor's remarks recognizing Sexual Assault Awareness Month, recognizing the work that providers within the Alliance across the state do to help survivors to feel supported, to recover, to access the services that they need, and then for the governor to say those kind words to me really fills my entire self with gratitude and humility, because Governor Lamont is the person the leader who has given me the space to do this work. And every time I've turned to him or to my boss, Secretary McCaw, they've always encouraged me and pushed me to do more in this space to support survivors. So I am both honored by the governor's recognition of this important month that lies ahead for supporting survivors, and for the words he shared to me. So thank you so much for sharing that, and try to maintain my composure for the duration of our conversation, but it won't be easy.
Perfect. So if there's anything else you want to share, Marc, now is the floor is yours. So anything else? I want you to know just how delighted we are as a team. Literally, as I said, every single person here, we went around to every team here at the Alliance and talked about who we wanted to nominate this year. And you were a unanimous choice for every team here. Which also shows the way in which you collaborate, not just with me as the executive director, but with our team of legal service professionals, with our post-conviction folks, with our program team, with our policy. You and Lucy work together often. There's no one here that you have not worked with. And for me, that's another great sign of your leadership. So we just could not be any more delighted than we are to have you share the space with us and have you lead us in the state of Connecticut.
A million times over, thank you, Beth, and thank you to every provider across the state of Connecticut who helps to serve survivors in our state. It's been an incredible honor for me to learn about the Alliance, to learn about the sexual assault crisis services centers around our state. For me, it all comes back to local, and that's why I've benefited enormously from volunteering for my local SACs, because every time I begin a hotline shift, I think about the the territory that I live in, and I think about the potential that a person from my town, my neighborhood, the year I graduated high school, I never know any specific information. We maintain complete confidentiality, but knowing that I'm serving people in my territory just fills me with such sense of responsibility. And that service has helped me to get to know, as you said, Beth, the volunteers, the staff, the counselors, the advocates, everybody who works in a SACS territory around our state. And being a volunteer is such a thrill for me because I get to see and support the work that goes on around our state. And what was so powerful from my counselor advocate training was learning that anyone can be an advocate. I learned so much from the training, and I'll always appreciate what Bradley and Alyssa taught me. I often open up all the materials when I'm on a hotline shift or otherwise and just go back and revisit the information they shared. But anyone can be an advocate. Anyone can write a letter to the editor in their local newspaper. Anyone can think about the needs of survivors who are out there and be a source of support, to say the powerful words, "I believe you." That is being an advocate. Working to advocate for policy change, working to stand up and support survivors. Anyone can do it in any capacity, local, state, or national level. And that tells me that I get to be an advocate 24 hours, 7 days a week, in the way that I live my life personally, and the way that I occupy this privilege I have professionally to be the Undersecretary of Criminal Justice Policy and Planning. And I think the last 12 plus months have been a time when I've really thought repeatedly about the needs of survivors. Because of the global pandemic, there was a need to shelter in place, to maintain social distancing, to stay at home, to to not venture out into the public. And although that may have made people in our state safer from avoidance of contracting COVID-19, that could have brought them, in many cases, in greater proximity to people who cause harm to them. And it may also cut off lines of communication that they might otherwise have to be out in the public, to interact with others. And what the CAT class has taught me is that a very small percentage of cases of sexual assault are committed by strangers. It's most often by people that we know. So I admire the work of the Alliance and all the member centers because they create pathways for survivors to reach out using the 24-hour hotline in Spanish or English, to reach out for counseling from their local SACs to get the support they need. And we're in a period right now alongside that pandemic of reckoning with the systemic racism in our country. And it's informing policy, all policy coming before the legislature this session. And I think about the heightened incidences of sexual violence in many of the communities that we are having discussions about at the macro level regarding racism. I'm thinking about Latina survivors. I'm thinking about Black survivors. I'm thinking about Indigenous survivors. I'm thinking about people with disabilities. I'm thinking about a whole variety of other individuals in our state who are at experienced heightened incidences of sexual violence and may experience greater challenges because of the inequities that exist in our society regarding healthcare, transportation, education, and so much more. So when we think about serving survivors, we think about serving all survivors and really focusing and tailoring the services and supports that we provide to the diverse communities that comprise our state in Connecticut. And number three, I'm thinking about the role of data, right? We're becoming more evidence-based, data-driven, research-informed. And I want to be sure that in my role, I'm providing opportunities and creating spaces for people serving victims and survivors to bring forth their data so that we can establish baselines and to show trends over time. So because I know in the early months of the pandemic, there was frequent questions about the impacts that we could assess in the data on victims and survivors. And I really admire the work that's happening right now in Connecticut to collect and share and analyze more data involving victimization. And I applaud the judicial branch's Office of Victim Services for pursuing a victimization survey modeled after the one that's conducted nationally that will reach out through surveys and other outreach to create a baseline of experiences of victimization in Connecticut, not just the ones that are reported to law enforcement, which is what the FBI Uniform Crime Report collects, but the voices of victims. And I think the same is true for the Alliance's efforts through the Post-Conviction Collaborative Project, through the Alliance's efforts to collect more data and share it. And our office at the Office of Policy Management would like to include more victim and survivor data in the routine information that's provided, because that's going to be an additional way of demonstrating need to the state, to legislature, to providers, and more. I think nothing is more powerful than the voice of the survivor, to the brave and people who come forward with the support of an advocate and a counselor to share their story, to press and call for change, to ensure that greater support is provided. Backing up and reinforcing that profound message of the survivor with data, I think makes a incredibly powerful combination that can achieve the change that we're all seeking and I think are on top of our minds and our hearts this month. So thank you for allowing me to share some brief remarks, but I really want to center this with gratitude on the individuals who experience sexual violence in our state. We hear you, we believe you, we support you, and in gratitude to the advocates and the counselors who do the work across our state every day serving survivors. Thank you for everything you do, and I'm honored beyond description for this award. And I view it as a responsibility moving forward. I view this as an award that I will not look back on, I look forward with, and I will remind myself of it in challenging times and bright opportunities of the responsibility I have to support the victims and survivors in our state. Thank you, Beth.
Thanks so much, Marc. It's my pleasure to recognize Melinda Johnson as the recipient of the Alliance's 2021 Community Ally Award. Melinda is the Director of the Community Engagement and Advocacy at the YWCA of Hartford, and she is a fierce leader, visionary, and advocate. Melinda has dedicated her life to her faith and in service of her community and has been an integral ally to the Alliance's work to support survivors of sexual violence in their faith communities. Melinda is committed to working at the intersections of sexual violence and other forms of oppression and has centered supporting survivors of sexual violence, domestic violence, and trafficking in her work. Melinda calls people in, offering inspiration, community, and empathy, and she makes movements. Whether it is helping us to build circles of care for survivors or organizing actions to honor the lives of Black men and women who are killed by state-sanctioned violence, Melinda shows up and gets us all to think more critically and dig deeper within ourselves to do better, to contribute more. Melinda has helped to move critical policies forward in Connecticut, such as the Crown Act, the Family and Medical Leave Act, and policies to strengthen our state's response to institutionalized racism, all of which support survivors of sexual violence. Melinda was also the Alliance's 2019 NSVRC Visionary Voice Awardee, and our team continues to be impressed by her tenacity and dedication. We hold her up as a model change maker. Melinda, we're so grateful for your work and your commitment to survivors and your allyship, and we're so happy to be able to honor you today.
Wow, thank you, Beth. Thank you for this opportunity, and thank you for even in the way that you strung those pearls together. You take challenging work and make it sound so beautiful. It has been a life's challenge to deal with the traumas that are so intimately woven into our community. I myself am a victor of domestic violence. I myself am a victor of sexual assault. And over the years, I have realized that these secrets that I've hidden within myself were also secrets that were hiding in other beautiful women and other beautiful people and in other beautiful spaces. Faith-based spaces where we go to serve our higher power, where we go to connect on another level. These are supposed to be spaces that are not just spiritual, but safe. And oftentimes it's in those spaces that we are not just confronted with our own demons, but we are confronted with the demons of others. And so sexual assault and sexual trauma in that culture is pervasive, and it takes place even in some of the most sacred spaces to our lives. But it's up to us to take our power back and to make the choice that those moments that were challenging, hard, traumatizing, terrible, that those moments, while they have built on our character, while they have even taken from us and stripped from us at times and at moments, whole portions of our lives and impacted our personalities, they do not define us. That we have opportunities to heal. We have opportunities to grow. We have opportunities to still become and become so much more. And make a contribution to our community that helps someone else heal and grow. So I received this award on today, acknowledging my community, acknowledging my people, the host of women and Black women and families and communities that I'm connected to here on the north side of Hartford, on the north end, and recognizing and acknowledging that there are still many that are hurting even right now. But you have opportunities and resources and supports that are willing to see you through this healing journey. And I encourage you, as I receive this award, to connect with the Alliance to End Sexual Violence, to make a choice today for yourself, to gain back that power, to make a commitment to your community that you can be whole and you can help in the wholeness that is being built around you. Thank you, Beth.
Thanks, Melinda. You remain being one of my favorite people to listen to. You're somebody who just brings so much inspiration and lightness everywhere you go. And it's always just such a pleasure working with you, but just being in your presence is always such a pleasure. So thank you so much for being with us today.
Thank you.
When we asked our Alliance teams if there were people who exemplified all the best qualities of an advocate in the anti-sexual violence movement in Connecticut, every team came back with the same person. I'm delighted to honor Lindsey Jones as the Alliance's 2021 Advocacy in Action awardee. Since joining the YWCA of New Britain as the Prison and Community Justice Advocate, Lindsey has made significant contributions to her member center and to the state. During her first week at the YWCA, Lindsey jumped right in and volunteered to speak during an advocacy day at the Legislative Office Building, and followed up by immediately speaking to policymakers about the importance of supporting survivors. Lindsey is willing to speak up and step forward no matter the audience. In her daily work, Lindsey tirelessly supports survivors navigating complex systems that are not survivor-centered and that often require additional work to overcome obstacles and barriers. In working with Lindsey on a rapid rehousing grant recently, I found myself struck by how undeterred she was by the complexity and the unrelenting work it took to support survivors in the program. No matter how many extra phone calls or emails or conversation it took, she stayed the course and advocated for those survivors to have good outcomes. Lindsey doesn't go the extra mile, Lindsey goes the 10 extra miles. Lindsey is an asset to the survivors that she works with and to the anti-sexual violence movement. She's able to also consider the big picture implications of the work that she does with individuals, and is a cherished member of our Legislative Advocacy Committee at the Alliance. She is one of the first people on our staff, one of the first people our staff reaches out to when we want to think through both the intended and unintended consequences of proposed policies. As an Alliance team, we could think of no one better who exemplified advocacy in action than Lindsey. It's been such a pleasure getting to know you and to work with you over these past months, Lindsey, and I could not be more proud to have you as part of our coalition.
Well, geez, Beth, now I'm very emotional. I'm also a big crier, which is why I wrote down what I wanted to share. I really appreciate it. Thank you, Beth. And thank you for to everyone at the Alliance for this award. It is a very wonderful and completely unexpected surprise to me. Receiving this award at the kickoff to Advocacy Day is really special to me because, like Beth said, my first experience with the Alliance was as a speaker for the Advocacy Day press conference, actually in 2018, as a volunteer in support of the Give Victims Time bill. And I was so nervous heading into that day. I was new to Connecticut. I was scared that I was going to stumble over my words. I was afraid to share such a personal story in front of a bunch of intimidating strangers. And I was worried that people from my life were going to hear that I had spoken and would pick apart my story or would view me differently going forward. And then I got to the event, and the room was packed with folks from the Alliance and from the member centers, including the YWCA New Britain Sexual Assault Service, the member center that I currently work at. And everybody was so welcoming. They thanked me for being there. They asked if I wanted something to drink. They made me feel safe and empowered. They told me they would be there to speak with me afterwards. And the story that I was going to be telling in my speech was mine to tell. I had written it, I owned it, but I had support. And no matter how the day went, I knew from the very first moment walking in there that I wasn't going to be alone. And that value, that survivors own their own stories, but deserve support, that's what guides me in my advocacy work. In my time at SACS, I have been lucky to work with around 250 survivors. And even though I'm the person accepting an award, the people who really deserve it are my clients, because I'm here to offer a hand to hold on a hospital accompaniment, or to sit next to them while they tell their stories to law enforcement, or to be with them in their frustration going through the legal system, or to advocate for them in the criminal justice system. But they are the people who are doing the hard work. They are the ones who are living the story. They are the ones who are trying to heal from a trauma and are trying to create meaning from what has happened to them. And they are the ones who are sharing their personal stories with a stranger who they just happen to get on a hotline, and trusting that I'm going to hold those stories and that I'm going to respect them as individual human beings. And that is such an honor for me. It really is. And it's an honor that I absolutely do not take for granted. Every day when I come to work and I get to be a part of someone's healing and empowerment is an important day for me. So thank you to the Alliance for this award. Thank you to my wonderful team at Saks and New Britain, who I truly deeply love with my whole heart. And thank you to my clients who have allowed me to witness your bravery and your resilience. You are heroes to me, and I'm incredibly privileged to know you.
Thanks, Lindsey. And I think you perfectly exemplified why we chose you for this award. And I think that we are very lucky to have you. I hope you keep that in mind also, that we truly value you so much here as an Alliance team, but also as a state, as being part of this movement. And I firmly believe, right, that all the love that you have for all those folks is shared immensely right back at you. And finally, I would say, please do not tell Lucy that I messed up the name of the LAC, but I have a feeling Lucy will
I
see
would
this,
never.
unfortunately. But thanks so much, Lindsey. It's such a pleasure. We're just so proud to have you here with us at the Coalition.
Thank you, Beth.